Okay, you guys, we did our deep dive into the analysis of the blood spatter expert's report when it came to Kaylee and Maddie on the 3rd floor. Now it's time to do the same for Xana and Ethan.
Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You knew that was false. For anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false. We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122. But we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, I'm going to let you guys know now. This is going to be just as detailed as the previous one. So there will be crime scene photos. There will be anatomy figures that shows where the wounds were and descriptions and definitions for things, just so that you are aware. Now, I want to start with a reminder of the amount of photos that were taken of the victims at the autopsies, because now we are at, again, Xana and Ethan's, and Xana has more than twice the amount of Kaylee, and Kaylee had such damage to her face that they considered her completely disfigured. And some of the officers described the experience of looking at her as trying to understand what they were seeing, because what was done to her made her no longer look human in that area. And 314 images were taken of Kaylee. 654 were taken of Xana. That says so much. But one thing I will also point out is that while Kaylee had 24 plus wounds to the scalp, face, and neck, that Xana's was pretty close at what they counted at 23. That's crazy. I would also like you guys to keep in mind that the official, actual, formal autopsy report has never been released to the public. I don't know if the families have the full-on, actual, factual autopsy report, official autopsy report, or not. I have no idea. It's hard to tell by the way that they say certain things, but I don't know. All I know is that we, the public, have not seen it. We have seen things listed. We have seen things be summarized. We have seen things be reiterated. We have not seen the physical, actual autopsy report. So keep that in mind, because what this is the blood spatter expert putting in her report the things that she deemed necessary for her report to be complete when it comes to the autopsy information. And since this is for the blood spatter, the wounds and where the wounds are and the positioning of the bodies, it all goes full circle. So we'll start with Xana's. Her autopsy was performed on November 16th, 2022 at 11:15 a.m. Cause of death is multiple sharp force injuries. Other injuries are abrasions and contusions of the head, torso, and extremities. We know from what the blood is telling us on the floor in her room that she fought. We are seeing her finger markings go through blood like she was being dragged at some point. She was fighting her ass off that night, straight up. Significant findings include stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 23. Stab wounds of the chest, 7. Stab wounds of the abdomen, 4. Incised and puncture wounds of the back, 3. That tells me that someone not only ran a blade across the skin of her back, but that the weapon itself also completely punctured through her back. Incised wounds of the upper extremities, meaning the arms, 25 wounds to her arm area. That is complete fight back. Incised wounds of the lower extremities, 5 on the legs. We did hear in a previous report that she did have, and I believe this is the video right here where we went over what we had previously from another summarization, again, not the actual official autopsy report, was that Xana had wounds from the literal center of her head all the way down to the back of her right calf, which is again why I find it really interesting that as we can see the way that her body would have been positioned in that room, there is no brown, smeared, or pink or red staining in the white portions at all of this rug underneath her. I just find that curious. Punctures of the outer table of the skull. Perforations of the jugular vein, heart, lung, and pulmonary blood vessels. That goes in line with all of the wounds to the chest and all of the wounds to the back, honestly. Hemorrhage into the chest cavities. Wounds extending into the bones of the right hand. We did hear that a portion of her finger area, fingers, fingers, had been severed so severely that they were almost completely severed off of her hand. So that matches with that. Scrapes and bruise on the face, torso, and extremities. Now, bruising is interesting. We'll get back to that. Blood alcohol concentration of 0.229. That is almost as bad as Maddie's. Now remember, for Xana and Ethan, we are not only going to have BAC levels, but also because of the blue powder that was found in Xana's room, we have amphetamine levels as well. This for Xana is 12 nanograms per milliliter. Now, I have no idea when it comes to medications and nanograms, what would mean what, so I went to go find the answer. I asked what milligram dosage of Adderall would give someone an amphetamine level of 12 nanograms per milliliter. Now, in reality, because everyone's body is different, body weight, body height, BMI, metabolism, all those things, you can't really get a super precise answer. The closest that we can get to try to figure out exactly what this could be is right here when it comes to the type of pills they actually have for this prescription. 110 milligram for a 6 to 12-year-old can give a 28.8 nanogram per milliliter reading. That is more than double what Xana has in her system here. Now that's for the extended release pill. If you go to the immediate release pill, a 10 milligram dosage is the same as an 11.9 to a 14.7 nanogram reading in a healthy adult. So that's pretty much the range that Xana's is in. It goes on to say that this 12 nanogram milliliter reading is generally within or below typical therapeutic ranges for ADHD. But I wonder if that is because she just had like a little bit. Is this her own prescription that she had actually taken and Ethan is the one that's taking it recreationally? Because you're going to see his levels are a whole lot higher. But also, could this just be her maybe coming down off of whatever it was that she did take, and maybe she took it before Ethan did. Maybe their timings are different. We don't really know. We don't know a lot about what's going on. Other findings include abundant bloody mucoid material in airways, patchy hemoaspiration pattern in pulmonary parenchyma. Now, as for Ethan Chapin's autopsy information, it says his was actually performed first on the 16th of November, 2022 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Cause of death, multiple sharp force injuries. He had the least amount of wounds. He is the biggest guy, the biggest person in there, the biggest victim, and he has the least amount of wounds. But we know he wasn't asleep. We know from what's in his system and his position as the blood began to come from his injuries. He was not laying down. The phone next to him is interesting. The way that her phone seems to be on the bed with him and his phone seemed to have been on the ground with her. The mix up with all the bullshit information with the DoorDash. It's been confusing to try to see what's supposed to actually go where when everything seems so mixed up. And this is just one of those other things. The smallest one of all of them, Xana, had the most amount of wounds and seemed to have put up the biggest fight out of everyone. Then we have the largest of them all with the least amount of wounds out of everyone. This case drives me nuts. Okay. Stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 4. Stab wound of the upper chest, 1. Remember what we previously heard, that Maddie's chest wounds were so severely forceful that her chest bone was like cracked. There was physical damage to the bone. This would be the only victim that had just one singular wound to the chest. Very odd. Incised wounds of the upper extremities, up on the arm area, 6. And incised, again, it doesn't mean puncture wounds or stab marks. It means something more like this. Stab and incised wounds of the lower extremities, the leg area, 6. Now remember, we heard previously that there were slices, really, really big slices in the back portions of the top thigh area of Ethan's legs. This has been something that has been discussed on other channels from when people were leaking information from a super long time ago in the very beginning of this case, at least when it comes to something similar being said when it comes to that kind of wound in Ethan's leg area. Those rumors became more truthful when we got the previous documentation, and there's going to be more information about this in this report. Perforations of the jugular vein, subclavian vein, and subclavian artery. Now, Ethan's blood alcohol concentration seems to be closer to Kaylee's at 0.122. Now, when it came to Xana's amphetamine levels, again, the blue powder that was found in her bedroom, her amphetamine level was 12 nanograms, okay? Ethan's is more than 20 times that amount at 260 nanograms. It's a good thing I do a final check while I'm uploading because I completely forgot to put this portion in the video. So we needed to find out how much different the levels were between Ethan and Xana for the amphetamine. And when we first looked at it, it looks crazy because hers looks sort of low compared to his, because his number at 260 nanograms per milliliter is over 20 times the amount that we see for Xana. So when you're just looking at those numbers, it does look like it might be maybe saying something that it honestly turns out it might not. Now, does this mean he was completely asleep? Does this mean that he was completely awake? No, it doesn't. There's a lot of factors and there's a lot of actual clues in the bedroom that we're going to talk about in a later video when it comes to the time frame between when they're claiming that the crime took place and when the DoorDash was supposedly dropped off, because we do see plates, we do see food, we do see curly fries, we do see things like that. So we're going to have those discussions. But for now, let's take a look at what it says about the actual measurement. I asked, please explain to me how much 260 nanograms per milliliter amphetamine is when it is compared to normal therapeutic use. Now, for urine concentration, urine testing, it says that 260 nanograms per milliliter is generally considered within or near the lower end of the therapeutic range. It goes on to mention how medications like Adderall, Vyvanse, and others can actually go anywhere between 200 to several thousand nanograms per milliliter, just depending on dosage and, of course, all the other things, because human bodies metabolize things differently and everyone's different sizes. Now, one of the conversations that was had during a live was that we needed to know if this was urine or blood testing. Because as you can see here, when we compare what we just heard about the urine testing to the plasma testing, it goes from being a very low-end therapeutic range to something that they could actually consider toxic. It gives you a list of the exact same medications. It tells you what the therapeutic blood plasma levels usually fall between for those medications. And then it says that toxic or recreational overdose blood levels are often more than 200 nanograms per milliliter. And it again doubles down on the fact that a urine level of 260 milligrams is considered a very low positive, or rather a low positive, and isn't suggestive of any sort of high blood concentration. But then again, we see the blood results. I don't see anything in these reports that tells us exactly what was tested, if they urine tested or if they blood tested. If anyone knows where this is stated directly in an official document, please let me know down in the comments so that I can grab that information. Okay, now let's jump down into the further parts of this report where it starts speaking about their positioning in the room and the blood spatter on the walls and the floor, because that's where the story is coming from this specific expert. Now, also remember, the photos that are going to be placed in this video as I'm reading this report are going to be from that very last drop of photographs from inside the house from the Idaho State Police that were released back on, I believe, January 20th, and were removed from their website because there were some very non-redacted things. So just keep that in mind for the visuals. It starts on page 68 of the 155-page document if you are following along. ISP 4719 shows an overview of the bedroom assigned to Xana Kernodle. Miss Kernodle is lying on the bedroom floor. She was wearing a pair of underwear, a long-sleeved shirt, and is barefoot. We were told this was gray. Ethan Chapin is lying on the bed, partially covered by a blue blanket and a pink comforter. He can be seen to be wearing a pair of white socks, and of course a big redacted black box. ISP 4708, which was cropped, shows blood on the bottoms of the feet of Xana Kernodle, meaning she was walking through blood at some point. I don't know what the reports claim about whose blood it is or if it's a mixture. If you guys know if this has already been mentioned in the reports that we have received so far, please let me know down in the comments, because admittedly, I have not seen every page. The spatter expert says this observation indicates that Xana Kernodle was moving about and stepping into liquid blood after bloodletting injuries had occurred. I honestly don't like that they use the word bloodletting, because to me that word has a certain aura, a certain vibe, a certain theme, and it just is odd to me, but that's just me. Okay. Although there is physical evidence to support that Miss Kernodle was moving about within her bedroom, there is no physical evidence to indicate that she ever moved beyond this room once she was bleeding heavily. The bottoms and tops of the socks of Ethan Chapin shows no blood visible on the tops or bottoms of his socks. This observation supports that he was not moving about and dripping blood or stepping into blood after liquid blood was shed, meaning that with the socks on, he never got out of the bed once the injuries started. Which again, I will say, it's interesting that the statement that Steve Goncalves said all those years ago about there being a hell of a fight on that floor, it wasn't because of Ethan. It was because of Xana, the smallest one of them all. A projected pattern, indicated by yellow arrow, is visible on the bedroom wall in the vicinity of the head of Ethan Chapin in this image number 4933. Mr. Chapin's head is between the edge of the mattress and the wall. This projected pattern is more readily visible in this other image, 4513. Damage to an artery can lead to production of an arterial projected pattern. According to the autopsy report related to the postmortem examination of Ethan Chapin, he suffered injuries to his left subclavian vein and artery. And again, there is a page in the Google Drive that is all of these definitions, because they have a separate page for it in this one, and so I went ahead and separated it. This next image would show an overview of the positioning of Ethan Chapin and the relationship between the projected arterial pattern on the wall and the location of the injured left subclavian vein and artery described in the autopsy report. The subclavian artery lies just below the collarbone or the clavicle on each side of the body. Saturation staining is located on the lower corner of the pillow under his left shoulder and on the sheet underneath each pillow. A swipe stain is located on his left side. What does that mean by left side? Like the left side on the wall, the left side on his arm, the left side on his face, the left side on his shoulder? I don't know what it means by that. Transfer stains are located on Chapin's left chest, left shoulder, and left upper arm, top and bottom surfaces of his left upper wrist. Transfer stains and saturation stains are located on the blue blanket lying across his torso and upper legs, and the bottom sheet under and along his right side. So obviously the bed sheet's underneath his body, and the blue blanket is lying across not his whole body, but his torso and the upper portion of his legs, which would be his thigh area. The picture that they would have right here shows a closer view of Ethan Chapin's upper body and neck. Heavy flow stains originating in the region of his left clavicle and flowing towards the right side of his body are visible. These flows then change directionality and flow down the right arm towards the elbow. His right shoulder had a transfer stain on the uppermost portion of the shoulder and flow stains traveling towards the elbow. The antecubital fossa of the right arm and the right armpit is void of staining. These voids are the result of these areas being shielded or protected from blood stains as the projected blood was created. A second area of projected staining is located below the antecubital fossa on the upper portion of the right forearm. These observations indicate that Ethan Chapin was on his right elbow when his left subclavian artery was injured. This positioning created a void at his right armpit as blood flow began to emanate from the wound. Blood flows towards his right neck and down his upper right arm, resulting in the void at the folded right antecubital fossa. As he falls towards his right, the flow patterns change directionality accordingly, and directional spatters from the injured subclavian artery strike his face. So it seems like he was sitting up on his right elbow. The left side was attacked first, and because of the angle at which he was up on that right elbow, the blood flow showed a certain direction. But as he started to fall after his injury, the direction of the blood changed. And when it says as he falls towards his right, the flow patterns change directionality, I'm envisioning him again up on his right elbow, but starting to fall forward towards the right, which is interesting because one would think that you would fall backwards. Like you would maybe your body would release and you would go back and you would no longer be on the right elbow, but it seems like it's more the opposite. His body was more like pushed forward towards the right instead of backwards towards the left. Does that make sense? Spatters showing directionality are visible on the left cheek of Ethan Chapin. These spatters were created due to the injured subclavian vein and artery. A flow pattern originating from the area of his neck continues across the chin, across the left cheek, and culminates above his right brow. Another flow travels around the bottom of his left nostril on the tip of his nose. No expiration of blood is visible at the nostrils, so there was no breathing out of blood at all. Voided areas are visible on the wall beside the bed after the body of Ethan Chapin was moved. These voids were created due to Mr. Chapin's head and hair shielding the wall from projected arterial blood originating from his injured left subclavian artery. So it seems like as he went forward towards the right side, his head rested on the wall. His head was down near the wall while the arterial pattern on the wall was created. An incision is located at the lateral right leg slightly above the knee. Saturation staining on the bottom sheet is associated with this injury. Spatter stains are located on the top of the right knee. A second injury below this incision is visible when the leg was rolled medially. the best way that I can describe this, if you need it to be described to you, because not everyone does, and I understand that, but I like to be as descriptive as possible. When they say that it was rolled medially, it means rolling the leg in an inward rotation. So say in your mind you're looking down at someone laying down on a bed in front of you, and you're standing there in front of them like at their feet. Take their right leg, which would be at your left side, and you would take your left hand and you would go clockwise. Like you would grab their leg and you would turn your wrist, your arm clockwise to turn their leg. That is an medial inward rotation. So the second wound under the initial incision is not noticeable. So it must have not been until after they went to move him maybe into the body bag that they noticed the second injury. The next one, that again we cannot see, shows the location of an incision visible at Ethan Chapin's upper left leg. This incision is not visible in the previous image, which depicts his body prior to the removal of the blanket and comforter. Saturation stains are noted on the pink comforter. The blue blanket and/or pink comforter was placed on top of the incision to the left leg after the incision was inflicted. The next one is described as depicting the incision of the left upper leg of Ethan Chapin. A small amount of saturation staining is noted on the bed sheet at the level of the incision. Spatters are located forward of the saturation stains. Transfers are noted on the left leg above the incision. I want to go back to this statement right here, where they're claiming that the blue blanket or pink comforter was placed on top of the incisions to the left leg after the incision was inflicted. Notice that it's just mentioning the left leg, but it doesn't mention this exact same thing when it talks about the wound to the right leg. So I'm going to just assume that maybe it was more of a one leg in, one leg out type thing. Or honestly, just as simple as whoever is responsible picking up the blanket and just tossing it, and it just landing barely over his left leg and his torso area and not covering up the right leg. But just the simple fact that this was a covered up type situation, knowing the way that the rest of this is really super interesting, because Maddie and Kaylee were also under blankets. Now, some people want to take that and really question what happened even harder, because we only have one person that was not covered up by a blanket, that was not on a bed, and they have the most injuries. They put up the biggest fight. But we also know that there are defensive wounds on other people, and there's definitely proof that Kaylee was breathing past having her injuries. There's proof of a lot of different things here that I really just cannot stand thinking about because of the delay in the 911 call. I seriously have a lot of questions, especially with the mixtures of DNAs that are in the forensic reports that we still need to dig into. Let's just keep the subject. So one other thing that also needs to be kept in mind here is that Ethan was naked, minus necklace, bracelet, and socks. He was completely naked. So that's another big deal when it comes to the psychology of whomever could have been responsible for this. Whatever you want to believe is whatever you want to believe. To maybe possibly have taken the blankets and covered up that area because of the fact that he was naked. If you are some sort of killer who this is just some random person and their collateral damage, and it just so happens to have happened because of something else that you had planned, would you honestly have the consciousness to stop and be like, oh, but let me go ahead and cover up his naked body so that when he's discovered, his private parts aren't out everywhere? That's normally something that's done by people that have some sort of emotional connection to the person that they've just done this to. At least that's what the majority of things are telling us. That's how the majority of people have come to understand these traits over time of going through these cases and trying to figure humans out, basically. Now, there's a lot of questions when it comes to Hunter Johnson, but let's just take it back to the basics and forget all of the rest of it for right now for this subject. We know that he was in that room before the police. We know that they are trying to make us believe that Dylan and Bethany never went in there and didn't even know what was going on, or we know the facts on that. So some people have questioned if maybe he took the blanket and covered up Ethan because he was Ethan's friend and Ethan was naked, and maybe he covered him up to give him a little bit of decency in the entire situation. He sort of takes himself out of the equation for that now that we have interviews and body cam. He has mentioned in an interview before that he didn't even realize Ethan was in the room at the time that he was seeing what was going on with Xana. We also know from the first responder body cam that he says that he hadn't checked on Ethan.
You got a call from them that someone didn't know there wasn't normal. I came checking it and this is right this down. And I checked the breeder that she's. And I didn't check her yet.
That he had checked on Xana and then the whole knife thing and had not checked on Ethan yet is where it basically just ended. So again, he takes himself out of the equation for that, but who knows? What I want to know is if we in 2026 have the capability of doing saturation math. Can we take the saturation rate for the thickness and the way that blood is saturated, however that works, because blood does differently than water does differently than vinegar does differently than oil, and so on and so forth. Can they do math for the saturation rate of that blanket for how many hours it would have had to have been on that open wound in order for it to have gotten the amount soaked up into it that it did, if they can even measure that? Because I'm sure that it would be really, really different if the blanket was on the wound as soon as it was created, when it's bleeding the most, when it's at its most vicious, in my opinion, versus 8 hours later when things have been still for, again, hours and stagnant and things are drying. There's a whole different type of saturation going to happen there. So I wonder if there's a way that they can actually measure that to tell us. And again, the simple fact that these are two different sets of people, two different bedrooms, nothing that connects the reasoning why, no real questions being answered from the prosecution, no answers from literally anything. We have all this paperwork, we have all of this forensics, but we have no definitive evidence that they can actually prove anything.
Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You knew that was false. For anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false. We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122. But we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
We have no true timeline because pieces keep skipping all over the place. That's why we're still here. But something else that I am noticing from the way that this is describing his leg injuries, it seems like it's more on the top of the leg and not the bottom of the leg. We've been told 1.5 million times at this point, when this stuff has been mentioned, that they were slices to the back of his thigh area, but nothing is mentioning the back portion of his leg. It's all the top side, the upper left, the upper right, the upper leg. It's not mentioning the back of the thigh. So again, this is one of those Mandela effect type things, I guess. Now the report is moving on to talking about Xana. Xana Kernodle was discovered lying on the floor of her bedroom as depicted in image 4911. Above the location of her head, a white nightstand is at an angle to the bed. A white shelving unit with dark gray drawers is against the wall between the bed and the closet. It's hitting me as I'm doing the editing that the description of the bedroom and the furniture that we're getting here is inaccurate, because the white shelf with the dark gray drawers is not between the bed and the closet the way that this would make one in their mind see it. As we can see from the crime scene photos, the white shelf with the gray drawers that Xana's head is next to is up against a wall on the opposite side of the bedroom that the closet door is. The closet door actually is sharing what seems to be a wall with the door frame to the entrance of this bedroom. So I don't know why they're describing it like that. Between the bed and the closet is these drawers next to where Xana was laying, because that's definitely not the way that I would be describing this situation. The only sort of shelving type thing that is between Xana and the closet would be her white desk off to the side here, or even that little caddy that's next to that desk. It's not the night shelf or the nightstand that we see that's white next to the gray drawer shelf and the bed. I know it's probably nothing, but just the description here is inaccurate, and so it's just bugging me. On the wall opposite the bed is a white desk. A white faux fur chair is between the closet and the desk. See, this isn't accurate either, so we do need to pay attention to the fact that a lot of these directions might actually be incorrect. And also remember, we had some sort of directional issues when it came to this expert's report on Maddie and Kaylee as well in this video. I distinctly remember that, even though it's been a hot minute since I put that one out. But the faux fur chair is not between the closet and the desk. The faux fur chair is between the closet and the mirror, which is on the opposite side of the room of the closet. What is between the desk and the closet is the white little 3-shelved caddy. I don't understand why this person isn't putting the correct descriptions in here if they're claiming to be writing this report based on the actual physical photos in front of them. The next image would show a closer view of the blood staining on the body of Xana Kernodle. The blood stains on her legs exhibit many transferred stains, wiped stains, and flow stains. Numerous transfers and saturation stains are noted on her sweatshirt. On the right thigh of Xana Kernodle, a patterned transfer is indicated by the yellow arrow in this other image. An object with a similar pattern either transferred the blood to her right thigh or contacted an existing blood stain on her upper right thigh while it was still wet. Now, they're not giving us a description of this pattern on Xana's thigh, but we do see, after they've gone in and started putting Amido black on the floor to try to catch the blood patterns, some sort of pattern on the ground. So I really wonder if this pattern matches the pattern that they're claiming is on her leg. The white nightstand shows transfers and wipes on the side closest to the bed on the top surface. The front edge of the nightstand has been moved away from the bed in order to make room for a bloody object that created the transfers on the side of the nightstand and to allow room for the drip stains noted on the floor. Drip stains and drip trails are noted on the bottom shelf of the nightstand and on the floor between the bed and the nightstand. Drip stains and trails are created when a surface wet with blood is above the level of the surface showing deposition. Spatter stains associated with impact are noted on the wall and on top of the nightstand. Now, when we went live for over 8 hours and went through all 2,790 photos, when we got to this portion, we did notice that it was definitely soaked hair that made these markings. And there's markings like this on the wall next to where Ethan was as well. Just more proof of how expanded their fight really was. This next portion of redacted images would have shown an apparent defect in the bedsheet circled in white. Yellow material is visible beneath the defect in the bedsheet as seen in the cropped image. I'm going to assume this is a stab mark in the sheet. Number 4556 depicts the area surrounding the white shelving unit along the west wall of the bedroom near the closet opening. Now, keep in mind the directional issues we already have here. This is the shelf that they're speaking about. The bed where Ethan was found is that direction, and the closet is that direction, again, sharing a wall with the hallway that leads to the door that leads into Xana's room. I don't understand why this person keeps claiming that this freaking shelf where Xana's head was touching is next to the closet, because that is not the case. Spatter stains are noted on the wall besides the leg of the shelving unit and are labeled with the placard 34. A closer view of this spattered pattern is depicted in DSC 4562. What is DSC? Does anybody know what that is? Department of what? I don't know. It's not ISP. It's not FBI. Department of what? Does anybody know? The appearance of the stains indicated by the yellow oval in DSC 4562 is consistent with diluted blood. Diluted blood is created when blood is mixed with another liquid. The mouth and nose injuries of Xana Kernodle, as noted in the autopsy report, are potential sources of diluted blood. The shape and area of convergence of these spatter stains indicate that the source of the blood was slightly above the level of these stains from facial injuries, from mucus and saliva getting mixed in with the blood as it's in motion. Spatter stains associated with impact are located on the wall to the right of the opening for the closet as depicted in this next image. The spatter is indicated by marker 29 in 4892. The appearance of these spatters is consistent with diluted blood as seen in the cropped image 4892. The mouth and nose injuries of Xana Kernodle, as noted in the autopsy report, are potential sources of diluted blood. The directionality of the spatter stains is from right to left as indicated by the yellow arrow inserted in image DSC 4892. Again, something that we can't see. These spatter stains originated from an impact to a source of exposed blood located approximately 3 feet 7 inches above the floor as indicated by the scale in image 4892. So something hitting up against something else that already had blood exposed on it. Transfer stains are noted on the white faux fur chair depicted in image 5091. Yeah, the faux fur chair. Just like this little stool at the massage place. You guys remember this, right? This chair is located adjacent to the head of Xana Kernodle. There are additional transfer stains in the uppermost portion of the leg of the desk depicted in 5093 and indicated by marker 35. Marker 35, presumptive test for blood was positive and the DNA matched Xana Kernodle. Swipe stains are located on the trash can underneath the desk as depicted in image 4800 and 4800 cropped and indicated by marker T. Remember, I kept mentioning the swipes on the trash can in the live like over and over and over again. Swipe stains resulted from the transfer of blood from a blood-bearing surface onto another surface with characteristics that indicate relative motion between the two surfaces. Testing showed the presence of the blood of Xana Kernodle. It looks like her fingers... like she went, like her hand just like went across it, or two fingers went across it. Upper portion of Xana Kernodle's bedroom door. 4781 depicts the upper portion of Xana Kernodle's bedroom door. The bloodstains depicted indicate a cast-off pattern composed of diluted blood and associated flow patterns. Cast-off is created when blood is released as the result of a bloodied object in motion. The appearance of the bloodstains reveal that the blood has been diluted by another liquid. The mouth and nose injuries of Xana Kernodle, as noted in the autopsy report, are potential sources of diluted blood. Flow patterns in this instance are the result of gravitational attraction. Lower portion of Xana Kernodle's bedroom door and adjacent floor. 4784 shows the lower portion of Xana Kernodle's bedroom door. Stain 36 indicates diluted flow stains on the exterior surface of the bedroom door. The appearance of these stains indicates that the blood has been diluted with another liquid, altering their appearance. Subsequent testing of these flow stains on the exterior of bedroom door indicates the blood of Xana Kernodle. The mouth and nose injuries of Xana Kernodle, as noted in the autopsy report, are potential sources of diluted blood. Drip stains were noted on the bedroom floor below the door. The relative location of these drip stains is indicated by a pink marker on the floor in image 4784. These drip stains are better visualized in the next image, 4787. These drip stains do not appear to have been altered or diluted. The location of these drip stains near the opening edge of the bedroom door represents the furthermost location of undiluted blood. Once Xana Kernodle was actively bleeding, there is no physical evidence that she was ever east of this location. So according to this spatter expert, once Xana was bleeding from her injuries, she never left the bedroom. That is it when it comes to the very separate information for body positioning and spatter for inside the bedrooms themselves. At this point, we have done Maddie's bedroom for her and Kaylee, and now we just completed Xana's bedroom for her and Ethan. We still need to do the stairwell information when it comes to the first floor stairs leading up to the second floor, especially since it's saying that there is Ethan Chapin's blood right here. And they're also claiming that Ethan never left the room once he was injured. So this is going to be really interesting to go through and try to understand exactly what they're trying to tell us with this. And we have to also look at the wall across the way. We have to look at the rest of the half wall information. We also have stuff when it comes to the bar cart, the living room. There are other pieces of information in this report we still need to go over. But like I said, I wanted to do these separately, and there's just so much that we still have to talk about. I do apologize for this one coming out so much farther behind the original one we did for Maddie and Kaylee than I would have liked, but it's out there. We're going to continue to go through the facts and the information just like we always have. Let me know what you guys are thinking about all of this new official forensic information down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.